A wine company will travel across the country, sharing their unique taste with folks from all over the U.S. This morning, we're joined by Val Haraszthy with the Bronco Wine Company to talk about the USA Wine Trail. Thanks so much for coming in this morning, Val.
My pleasure.
We've got this USA tour that you're making. What got you involved? Why did you want to do this?
Well, I've been fortunate. I've been with the Franzia family, Bronco Wine Company, now for 10 years, and in that time we've been very lucky to acquire about 40 different distributors in 40 different states, and it just seemed to my wife and I that with this day of Facebook and Twitter and email, the personal connection between wineries and their distributors and their accounts has been marginalized, and so I decided to hit the road and meet them and get to know my distributor partners, get to know some of my key retailers, and the way to do it is with food and wine, and so that's what it's all about.
The way to our hearts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're making this trek across the country. You're actually on your way back to California.
Yeah.
And you're driving around in a pretty cool rig, right?
I'm driving around in a 1951 Willys Overland Jeep. This was the first station wagon made in America, and after World War II, the troops that came back, of course, they had remembered the Jeep very fondly, and they just bought them up like crazy, and so I got one to tell you the truth, the model for this was the Wienermobile.
Oh, there you go.
A vehicle that rolls into town that's hard to forget, and so I thought I'd do this in a memorable car versus a rental car.
Well, there you go, and a good choice at that. Now, you've been bringing your wines and even doing a little bit of cooking. I know you've probably had a lot of memorable experiences along the way. Just share one with us, about some of the people you've met.
Oh, the people, I would say the funnest part of this trip has had absolutely nothing to do with the wine business whatsoever.
It's all about people.
It's about people. And, if you want to understand lifestyle, you need to go there. And I wanted to get the flavor of each of these markets as best I could.
You're here to give us a lesson, in fact, this morning on some wines. You've brought some of the wines from Haraszthy Winery. Tell us a little bit about your winery that you own in California.
Well, I guess, we have over 4,000 wineries in California now. When I started in 1972, we had 250 wineries. So, I'll be able to tell my grandkids, I can remember when we only had 250 wineries.
Right.
And so, this is to say that the wine business has become so competitive, and I've been very lucky because my family has a history with the founding of the wine business in California. I had two great-grandfathers. One was Mariano Vallejo. My name Val is short for Vallejo.
Oh, there you go.
And he founded Sonoma. He was a Mexican general.
Oh, wow.
He founded Sonoma in 1835. Built a barracks there, made some wine in the barracks there. In 1846, we had an uprising of settlers who he had welcomed to town, and they decided to take California for themselves. They arrested him, threw him in jail, hoisted down the Mexican flag, and drew what was the first state flag in California, which is the bear flag. So the bear has
on a lot of your labels here.
This is what the bear is all about. It harkens back to the beginning of our state, the beginning of the wine business. On the other side of my family was Augustin Haraszthy, who was a Hungarian immigrant, ended up in Sonoma, and built the first winery in California called Buena Vista Winery, which is owned by John Charles Boisset. Wonderful man, makes great wine. My family has nothing to do with Buena Vista anymore, but we've never left Sonoma, and we've never left the wine business. So this is what we do. I've always had a fondness for Zinfandel, as well as Sauvignon Blanc. And so we buy grapes on the open market from grape ranchers and then bring them back to our facility and crush and ferment and bottle and then take it to market.
Very cool to hear about this wine history, and arguably probably influencing some of the winemakers here in Northeast Indiana. We've got some great wineries. Definitely check those out before you head back to California. But let's talk about some of the wines you brought in this morning. We're going to do a little tasting and talk about the foods that pair with some of these wines. So what wine are we starting with here?
This is our Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc is a grape that originated in France. Their Sauvignon Blanc, I'm very, Sauvignon Blanc changes tremendously from one growing area to the other, as does Zinfandel, which is why I'm so interested in both these grapes. The Sauvignon Blanc is 100% Sauvignon Blanc, grown in the Lodi area, which is just due east of San Francisco, inland. It's fairly warm there, and this is the style of Sauvignon Blanc that you get in warm weather growing Sauvignon Blanc country.
What types of flavors will people find in a Sauvignon Blanc?
Well, it's a Sauvignon Blanc. You can actually, I would say you can make a good case that Sauvignon Blanc, the flavor, the bouquet, the aroma, everything that makes up a wine is stylized in the vineyard, not the winery. It's how you grow Sauvignon Blanc. You take the canes, it's called canopy management. This is how, what's your management treatment of the foliage over the fruit. It's sort of like Venetian blinds. If you open them up, you get a lot of light in there, and this is the type of style you get, which is crisp, what we call has high minerality, wonderful with shellfish. Anybody that likes oysters is going to like Sauvignon Blanc.
Chicken probably goes well with this too, right?
Yes, chicken,
so
barbecue
any kind of
chicken.
poultry?
Poultry, fish, shellfish, light pasta dishes, Alfredo sauces, natural match with Sauvignon Blanc.
All right, let's move on to some of the drier wines here too, or the red wines at least, because this is on the dry side as well. But I'm going to pour a little bit. Why don't you talk about this while I give a little taste here? And I'll see what kind of flavors I can pick up on.
This we call Baratage. It's a blend. This is red blends have become a very hot category in the market. And of course, a blend can be any combination of any number of grapes. This particular blend is 50% Zinfandel, 35% Syrah, and 15% Petit Syrah.
And one of the things I'm picking up, Syrahs usually have a little bit of a smokier flavor, and I can definitely taste that in this blend. You
know, Lodi fruit, and all these grapes come from Lodi. That's one of the things that it puts into the spice rack of a wine, is this slight, beautiful sort of prosciutto, bacon, slight ham thing. It's not overpowering, but that's your Lodi flavor coming through.
Very pleasant,
there.
very smooth.
Nice
and then
and
this
round.
last one here is actually a Zinfandel that you've been talking about.
This is 100% Zinfandel from Sonoma County, up in an area in a town called Healdsburg, is a very, very well-established Zinfandel corridor called the Dry Creek Valley. And so we source this fruit from Dry Creek Valley. Some of the wineries that are notable up there would be the Sagacios, the Wilson Winery. And the area is almost exclusively planted to Zinfandel, and a particular clone of Zinfandel called the mother clone that was, I believe, brought to that area in the early 1900s by the Pedroncellis, and a really well-known, respected family up there.
The flavor has a little bit of a fruitier flavor than I noticed in the blend.
Well, that's what you know. When you blend, you add dimension and complexity to a wine, or if you don't blend, you get the full power of what Zinfandel is all about. And Zinfandel is a very, very fruit-forward wine, and bright cherry, raspberries, blackberries, and that's what the Dry Creek's all about.
And one thing about Zinfandel too, or at least this particular one, is it's on the dry side, but it's not overpowering. It's not as dry as I felt the red blend was.
Dryness is the absence of sugar, okay? And there are wineries that will opt to leave a little bit of what we call residual sugar in the wine, which we don't get born liking wine, but we get born liking sugar.
There you go.
And a little bit of sugar can really have quite an alluring quality to wine. Zinfandel is so jammy and fruity that going completely dry, fermenting to zero sugar, works real well.
And for those who are considering these two kinds of wines, what types of food do they pair well with?
Barbecue.
Barbecue, ooh. So good for the fall tailgates here.
Yeah, well, red wine, of course, can be matched with, the natural match, of course, is meats.
Okay.
But barbecue seems to be segment of cuisine, I guess you could say, that Zinfandel has really hitched its wagon to. And I think a lot of that has to do with this natural sort of smokiness in the wine pairing up so marvelously
The smoky food.
with the smoky food.
And there you're doing some cooking right there, and it pairs very well with these meats. As we're getting ready to close here, we're almost out of time, but if folks are interested in getting some of these kinds of wines, where can they find them?
Well, we have a wonderful association with S&V Liquors.
Okay.
We were down there today. We did some bottle signings. S&V Liquors are kind of bringing me to the party in Fort Wayne, so I got to give them a plus. And we got, we'll be expanding our points of distribution. But
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in this morning,
My
Val.
pleasure, Rob.
Great to taste some of these fantastic wines. Good luck on your journey back to California. We're so
Thank
glad
you.
that you made it here to Fort Wayne to say hello and share some of your wines with the rest of the world. And as he mentioned, some of your wines will be made available through S&V Liquors.